Great. So thank you everyone for joining today. We are today speaking about the topic of commercializing waste streams, a new revenue path for fashion and interiors. This is a webinar in collaboration with Positive Luxury and Bean London. So we'll be chatting through today through an agenda with a little bit of introductions about who's here today. Then we'll touch on the topic of waste and circularity in the fashion and interiors industries. Then I will hand over to the other presenter in the room to talk about Bean London, introduce to the wonderful organization that Bean London is. Then we'll touch on a little bit about return on sustainability and investment and thinking about kind of how to move forward. And there will also be some time for Q&A at the end. So if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we can have a look at the end if there is anything to bring up. But starting kind of just quickly introducing myself first. So my name is Sarah. I'm the client success manager for our fashion and interiors lab here at Positive Luxury. I've been in the business for over 2 years now, helping our luxury clients on their sustainability journey. And I'm here today with Genia as well, who is the founder of Bean London. Bean is a multi-award winning circular design studio, an accessories brand with a mission to change the way we view waste. So I let Genia introduce yourself maybe a little bit more later on when we get to the section of the webinar about the organization. But first of all, because depending on who is in the room with us today, I thought we would start very quickly to do a brief introduction to Positive Luxury if you might not be yet aware of who we are, or you might already be a client of ours. So Positive Luxury, we are the sustainability experts for the global luxury industry. We work with over 200 businesses across 6 different sectors, from fashion, accessories, interiors and living, beauty and fragrances, jewelry and watches, travel and leisure, and premium drinks. But we always focus on the kind of premium and high-end markets. And the way we work with our clients it varies a lot, but one of our biggest kind of main services is our ESG plus assessment. And this is an assessment that our clients can use to understand their sustainability performance and find kind of risks and opportunities along their journey from governance, environment, and social. And the assessment has been built upon kind of international standards and legislation to make sure that we are providing clients with the best practice of what the industry is expecting. And the reason why I'm kind of bringing this service of ours up today is because our service and our assessment is based on the concept of double materiality. And double materiality is basically a measure of how important a piece of information is when making a decision. So today companies are not only required to disclose their performance on topics that are impactful for their financial performance, but also where the company's sector has a significant impact on people and nature. So that means we're looking at a double materiality analysis. And the reason why we're now during this webinar looking at this graph is because for the fashion and interiors industries, we can see that waste management is in the upper right quadrant for both industries. So that means that is material to the business, material financially, but it's also material to people and nature. And therefore, that's why we're here today talking about waste management and circularity and different innovative solutions for it that can provide us with new revenue streams, as an example. Before handing it over to Genia, just to kind of set the scene about waste in our wonderful industries, we thought we would give in some kind of stats to remind about the situation. So, for example, 80% of interior professionals report a growing client interest in recycled products, and 72% see demand for upcycled products. So that really signals a growing interest and a shift in values, that clients are not just asking for beautiful spaces anymore, they're asking for responsible ones. And it kind of shows that sustainability is becoming a key driver of design decisions and not just a nice to have. Another interesting stat for us is that 100 billion new garments are produced annually, but 57% of discard clothing ends up in landfill and 25% are incinerated. So that's probably a stat that a lot of you may have heard in the past before, but it really does again and always highlight the urgent need to rethink the kind of linear take, make, dispose model. Despite the scale of production, most garments still have a very shockingly short lifespan. So it's really clear that circular design and resale and recycling solutions should be coming the norm and not an exception in our industries. The third stat is looking at kind of the fact that 1% of all textiles worldwide are recycled into new products. So that is also, again, quite a staggering figure. It means that almost all textiles are still treated as waste, not as resources. And this can also be looked at not just in a negative way, but to kind of understand that there's a very big untapped potential here for innovation and into kind of textile to textile recycling, and for businesses to help and lead in a way to in closing the loop. Next stat moving on is that 89% of retailers now offer products made from recycled materials, and 68% sell upcycled products. So again, this is kind of just reconfirming the idea that circularity is no longer a niche. It's becoming more popular, and brands are kind of responding to the demand and proving that recycled and upcycled materials can drive both the creativity side of these industries, but also looking at, the commercial success. 80 to 90% of EU furniture waste is incinerated or sent to landfill. Only 10% is recycled. So again, this is quite an interesting stat, I think, for specifically, of course, for the interiors industry, that it really shows how far they still have to go in terms of circularity. And that with such a small percentage being recycled, again, there's an opportunity. So even though we look at these stats and we think about it as a oh my goodness, that's a big number, it's negative, we should see it as an opportunity here today, especially about the topic and being London that we're talking about. And then finally, and almost enough with all the stats, the final one is just to say that 1 in 2 consumers are also seen to be prioritizing upcycled alternative products. So again, there's a consumer mindset that's shifting, which again is a great opportunity to see that consumers are actively also seeking for upcycled alternatives, and it's no longer a small movement. It's a clear signal that sustainability is influencing purchasing decision at scale as well. So it makes sense to think about it from a kind of new revenue path for businesses. And that is it for all the stats and all the kind of scary numbers. And I will now move to Genia to introduce Bean London, about herself, about the solution, and we'll do a little switch of screen sharing so we can see some cool visuals from the business as well.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Let me just share my screen and let's see if this works. Yeah, can we see it?
Yes, that's lovely. Thank you.
Great, perfect. Maybe I'll start with telling you a quick story of how we ended up where we ended up. I actually don't come from a luxury background at all. My background was in journalism. I used to be an investigative journalist. working for the BBC for most of my career. And 10 years ago, I stumbled upon a story that had to do with waste and the amount of stuff that we put in our recycling bins that actually don't get being recycled, that end up being incinerated or end up in landfills. And I thought, surely, like with no experience in the industry, I thought, surely there's something we can do. Surely there's, even from a storytelling perspective, we can create a product entirely from waste. Would it be even possible? And then tell the story of about the opportunity. Can we make beautiful products from waste? So this is really how we started. I retrained, I got another degree and set up Bean, initially as a brand, as an accessories brand, making products entirely from waste, but in a premium kind of, playing with this contrast between how waste is perceived and what you can actually do with this and what kind of premium products you can make from this. This is how we started, and very quickly, big companies started reaching out and asking us whether we could make something like this for them. So this is really how it all began. All the stats. I don't need to tell you about this, how much stuff we are throwing away, and the direct link with climate change. So the idea is, can we make the things we need from things that we normally throw away? We are, as Sarah said, we're a design studio and a brand. We work with multiple clients around the world, designing products entirely from waste, either from their own waste or from kind of other companies' waste. This is just some of our partners and some of the awards we won recently. I'm not going to bore you with this, but in terms of the impact that you can create as a company by sort of sourcing differently or turning your own waste streams into products, we've run a bunch of life cycle assessments, and you can achieve up to 87% reduction per product just by replacing all materials with materials that are waste derived. So whether it's your own company's waste streams or just sourcing recycled materials, it has a significant impact on the carbon footprint. We work with a whole range of materials, including brewery waste, including twigs and leaves turned into a leather alternative, fish collagen leather, and all sorts of things. I can talk about it later. I'm not going to bore you with this now. I'll start with showing you some of the examples of very kind of simple products that we've made. This was a collaboration, a commission by DHL and Formula One. We turned their used banners into a collection of collectibles. So because of the nature of banner and the way you can cut it up, so it's an upcycling project. Every backpack, every bag was unique, completely unique, because the print was very different. DHL decided to sell those products and donate all the money to a charity of their choice. So it was that sort of, but there's some companies just choose to sell those products, and we can talk about them later. We obviously combined the banners with other recycled materials. So every material you see here is at least 70% recycled. Some of it is 100% recycled content. And it was a whole collection. We've done a couple of projects with them ever since. This is a commission from Netflix we worked on. Again, I can't show you the details, but you can make super premium. It's a gifting project that we did for Netflix for their actors and film directors. And my friends keep joking that they were like, only you can convince Netflix to give waste to the actors. Yeah, I think we made it look really, really premium. It's a beautiful product. It's a kind of a gift set that we did for them. This is a very recent collaboration. It's a good example of how you can actually commercialize this. It's a partnership we currently have with Tate, and if you are in London or in the UK, you can pop into any Tate stores and you'll see the products that we made for Tate. So it's merchandise for them. We turned Welcome to Tate banners into a collection of accessories. There's a whole number of products, and you can see them all in their stores. So by utilizing waste, we managed to cut down some costs. So in terms of cost structure, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those later. But again, it's sold through their retail stores. It has a really good story. The communication department loves it because they have, quite an interesting story to tell. We have really good feedback from customers on this. And it's a lovely product. All the other materials that you see that are not banner are recycled materials. Then this is another recent project, Country and Townhouse. I don't know if any of you have been to this, or have seen maybe the awards last October, Sustainability Awards. So that's another project we worked on. These are made from used DVD cases. Do you remember those? So this beautiful marble part is used DVD cases, all made here in East London, molten and then CNC machined. And then the red part is 100% recycled acrylic. So the awards were basically made completely 100% waste. And we thought it was quite nice to aim. We always aim for the 100%. So that was a lovely project to work on. So not to bore you more with examples of those projects, let's define what really is waste. I think for the purpose of this webinar, maybe let's not talk about chemical waste because it's not quite related to circularity. But if we're talking about fashion and interiors, I mean, there are a few groups that we normally see. And in fashion and interiors, it's quite similar. There's usually a group of kind of textiles. That's very clear. It's like all the fabrics that go into both. Then we have the leathers that are quite tricky, again, used across both industries. And then we have in furniture and interiors, more specifically, we have wood, we have metals, we have plastics, we have foam quite often. So foam is, again, a tricky one. And for those of you working in the industry, you know this. So I think how we could structure it, I can briefly go over those groups of materials and just give you some ideas of what they can be turned into, especially if they're tricky, you know. So, and then we have obviously packaging. I can touch on that a little bit, and other waste streams. Let's just group them into one pile for this. And I'm talking about outdoor advertising. Most companies do have some sort of outdoor advertising, again, banners, etc. Events, etc. Yeah, I think we call ourselves optimists. We always see an opportunity in whatever is thrown away. Our team usually goes, okay, this sounds really fun. Let's see what we can make out of this. So, as Sarah said, it is definitely an opportunity, and an opportunity to turn it into something cool that can be resold, gifted, etc. I mean, with textiles, I think it's really straightforward in many ways. That the best way to do it is, of course, textile to textile recycling. More materials are easier. I'm sure a lot of you will know all of this. So cottons are easier to recycle than cotton polyester mixes. So from this point of view, just we think about it at the design stage and try not to use mixed materials wherever possible. But the difficulty with this is often the volumes. So, I mean, textile waste is beautiful. You can make new cotton out of it. You can make a whole range of products from this. But the volumes are usually quite high. The lowest MOQ we know of is quite low. It's 500 kilos. It has to be a monomaterial, but that's possible. It's in Europe. It's not in the UK. But usually it starts from 2 tons. Again, I think some of you will know that the MOQs are quite high for textile to textile recycling. There are some companies, some factories recycling mixed materials. That's harder. The easiest way is to turn it into felt. That's, again, something that we've been doing for many, many years. If it's a mixed material, you can kind of chop it up, especially with uniforms. That's really helpful because they're usually made from mixed materials. Turn it into felt. There are many ways of doing this, but usually big volumes. So this is the ideal case scenario, but not always possible. When textile to textile recycling is not possible, there's another fun way. It's turning textiles into something else. If it's a mixed textile, if it's a tricky textile, if it's currently not recycled by anyone, if the costs of shipping it to a recycling facility are too high, there's still a way of doing something cool with this. And what we tend to suggest is, I mean, you can go down the path of just shredding it and using it as filler. So for furniture companies, this could be relevant. That's definitely an option. We could connect you to some good people who shred really nicely. As if nice shredding is a thing. But there's also there are also opportunities of turning it into a completely new material, and I can show you some of this. I mean, if you look at this this material here, and I've got some with me. I don't know if you can see my camera very well, but
Yeah,
this is made.
yeah, we can see a little bit.
Yeah, so this is
It
made.
almost looks like a marble.
It looks and feels like a marble. It can be
Yeah.
cut. It can be CNC'd. There's a lot of things you can do with this. So I think both for fashion and for furniture, it's such a fun thing to do. Imagine, you know, using pre-consumer sofa offcuts and making a side table out of them. That is kind of matching, but not quite. Like, it could be a really beautiful design, and you can control the color combinations there, not just through textiles, but through the dye that you add to this. So there's lots of really cool things that you can do with your textile offcuts. It can be pre-consumer, post-consumer, and yeah, it's very playful. I find it really playful. There's lots of fun to be had. You can also turn it into furniture. So these processes on the right that I'm showing, they're bioresin based. This guy here, the blue chair, it's used denim. It's post-consumer denim turned into a chair by using a potato starch based binder. So you can create really thin veneer and then use it on top of furniture. So this is quite a cool process as well. But just, I hope, yeah, if we think that way, we can see opportunities in our own offcuts and waste. Then again, lots of textile processing here. If textile to textile is impossible, you can make lots of different things. You can make your event props, store fittings, coasters for the office, chairs for events. Again, I've got something in my hand. This is a post-consumer waste stream. So mixed shoes, clothes, everything you can imagine. It's a UK-based process, shred really finely and turned into this really heavy, again, marble-like material, which is really good for furniture and store fittings in particular. The shelving, all the plinths can be made from stock, damaged stock, end of life, all of that.
I mean, it's a fantastic story to tell, as a let's say, you know, as a fashion brand using pre or post consumer scraps and then making something for like a retail space, and being able to say that that's part of the, you know, part of the supply chain. It's a really interesting story.
And it doesn't have to look recycled, you know, not everyone's into recycled look. It can look really, really premium. And I think this is what we've always been trying to show, show that it can look really chic. So leather. I mean, on textiles, if that's of interest, we can chat later in Q&A about this. But leather is a painful one. And I don't know how many of you work with leather, but it's a tricky material to recycle because nobody wants to recycle it. Usually anyone working with leather will have pre-consumer offcuts. The problematic thing there would be that the leather is already dyed and processed. It's often glued to something else. Same problem as with post-consumer. So it's usually a pair of shoes and it's like a gazillion different materials glued together. So it makes it really, really difficult. Some of you might be thinking, what is recycled leather then? Recycled leather is made from a very early stage of leather processing. It needs wet blue leather, so it's before it's dyed, before it's processed. So you can't really put, currently, there is a pilot on the way, so we might have something in a couple of years, but you can't really currently put dyed leathers through kind of a recycled leather process. But it will be possible soon, and I'm going to update you as soon as this happens. There is a pilot happening in the UK. So with leather, again, there is a leather-to-leather recycling process available now in the EU. And we're working on a pilot with them at the moment, which turns post-consumer leather, so used shoes, used handbags, offcuts, and everything you can imagine, into this sort of, you can see it in the slide, but you can also see it in my hand.
Yeah.
It is a really flexible, if you work in leather goods, you will know something called salpa, a material used for structural parts of handbags to give them shape. We're currently designing a handbag in collaboration with the factory, not for sale, but just as a proof of concept, out of this material. But this is made from a very well-known brand's shoes, post-consumer. Mm-hmm. So separated from soles, shredded, and then turned into this new material. So again, for a company working in leather goods, imagine unsold stock or damaged stock or take-back scheme if you're running this with your clients. Shredded, separated, turned into a material that can go back into the system and become structural parts of leather goods. It can also be used on its own, right? It can be a really good story, a product that can be sold. So again, an opportunity to monetize your own waste and cover the costs, because creating waste costs money. We all know this. So this is one of the ways of making sure it either doesn't cost anything or actually brings some revenue. So this is leather. This is the ideal process for leather, right? In the long term, it's slightly costly. It costs about to pilot and to create a bespoke material. It starts from around 18,000 euros. So it's an investment. It's not super expensive, it's not super cheap, but it's an investment. But there are other things that can be done with leather. If the volumes are small, if an investment of this amount is not feasible, and if you don't particularly need a sort of a recycled leather, sort of salpa-like material, again, you can do lots of fun things with this. You can put it through the same process as I talked about earlier and create point of sale, kind of really, really shredded very finely, and do this. This is one of the tests that we've been running. You can see there's like bits of leather, bits of textile in it. You can bind it with a binder and turn it into a whole range of different things, like this, for instance. I've got something in my hand right now, which I can show you, is made from our offcuts. So I don't know if my hand is visible.
Yeah, we can see that.
From our own brands, offcuts. Quite a cool material. We are in the process of designing something out of it at the moment. It's solid. It creates a really cool sound. And I mean, just think of it, a leather handbag brand using this to create a new handle, for instance, for the new collection. I'm thinking of Coach and other companies who have done something, upcycling and circularity. You can bring your own offcuts into the product and kind of make it a revenue generator. It's an exciting story. It's a really beautiful kind of story. Then, so this again, like opportunities for gifting, etc. There's lots of different things. And then obviously upcycling is always the best option, right? I don't even say this because that's quite obvious. If we can avoid processing, if we can just upcycle the material, the offcuts, that's always the best option. We do a lot of those projects as well. And then everything else. This is a big group, but I'm just trying to think of the most common things that we see. Of course, is plastic packaging, a lot of it, like all the plastic bags. We're just chatting to a really large luxury retailer a few weeks ago who get products from multiple companies, from multiple brands around the world, and they say we can't control what it comes in, and it always comes in plastic, and there are multiple types of plastics, and we, as careful as we are with our own procurement, we can't really control what our brands are sending us. So this block here, the black one, is made from plastic bags. You can do lots of different things. You could mold it into hangers for your stores. You can turn this plastic packaging into, again, gifting, or products that you can sell through your usual channels. I mean, for furniture, it's even more applications. I think there's lots of different things you can do in small accessories. This is this material on the left. There's a lot of plastic bottles and plastic caps. We see a lot of banners. So banners, I think I have to, I'll mention them because we get a lot of project with banners because nobody seems to know what to do with them. And for a good reason, because there's not like one composition of outdoor banners. There are a million, not a million, but there are quite a few. There are maybe 6 or 7 most commonly used ones. But the durability requirement, the fact that outdoor banners have to be really durable, withstand weather, winds, etc. They usually come, it's vinyl, sometimes it's polyester backed. So there are multiple different materials and they're quite tricky to recycle. But we've been doing a lot of research together with our partners. We work with JCDecaux as kind of end-of-life partners. So we're doing a lot of experiments there. And again, any of them can be turned into something, just depends on the composition. If you dive into the composition, some of them can go through the polyester recycling process. Some of them go through shredding and kind of bioresin process. There's multiple processes that you can do. Just requires kind of creative thinking.
Yeah.
I think the biggest kind of what I would like to leave people with, 2 things. One is it's really cool, but it would be really fun if you could all of us could think, what do we buy as a company? What do we normally buy? What do we spend money on? And what do we throw away? And try to marry the two. Like, can we make what we normally buy from the things that we throw away? And if we can make that perfect circle happen, that I think would be really fun. And and the kind of the last thought is, can we all collectively create less waste? And there are multiple ways of doing this. One of them on the left is, as I mentioned, we do a lot of work with material innovators, so labs developing new generation materials, developing them from waste. This is our specialty, so we kind of join them very early on in the process and help them get the material to a product kind of industry ready stage by prototyping. And this one, for instance, is one of my favorite materials. It's called Tree Kind. It's made from trees and leaves, gardening waste, farming waste, and it is home compostable. Although it's not yet commercially available from what I know, this is definitely a step in the right direction. But what we did here, because the material is home compostable, we needed to figure out not just the compostability, how the entire product would compost. So what thread are we using? We can't use the normal acrylic or polyester thread. We had to use a thread that would compost at the same time as the main material. We work with Coats on this, who are the biggest thread manufacturers. So what glues are we using? Are the glues going to change the soil if it's compost? All of those things, the hardware, right? So in this case, the hardware, you can just clip it off. But this is kind of, I think, maybe an example of where it would be fun. It would be great for all of us to head in that direction. Can the products we make be fully home compostable, not needing any sort of infrastructure to do it? And the other, I mean, easy step we can all do is think of zero waste in our manufacturing. We use only rectangular panels for our own brand. So just thinking at the design stage, if a material comes on a roll, can we design from rectangular panels and minimize waste? And you see those tiny corners that are curved. So those are the little corners that we collect from the factory and then make this material from. So this is what it's made from, literally those tiny offcuts.
Oh.
Just collect those tiny offcuts, whatever they, and turn them into something else.
Yeah.
I am hoping that this gives enough sort of food for thought and ideas, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Yeah, I hope it leaves you with the sort of the idea that it's an opportunity, and there's a lot of fun to be had. And if you apply sort of design thinking and commercial thinking and join the two, waste could be an interesting thing to work with.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing all of that. I think exactly it's food for thought, and I think it's obviously we know that there's lots of innovation happening, and there's different ways to think about waste. But I think just even seeing the material that's come out of waste is still of a bit of a moment. I remember
Yeah.
when I came to your studio in person and saw the materials, and it was like, oh right, so that comes from that. So it is one of those interesting points, and it's also, I think, is a good point that you made, that it's obviously you can start thinking already from the design stage in terms of, if we're thinking about textile to textile, like you said, like if it's just one fiber, so it's not mixed fiber, so you can already think ahead from the beginning. But also you also have opportunities later in the loop as well, so with things such as packaging, etc. So it's not one size fits all. There's so many different opportunities, and depending on what the waste is, and what the ideal kind of outcome of it is, which I think is so exciting, that there is such very different opportunities here. I think I've got kind of like a conclusion statement to link this with kind of commercial benefits as well. But before that, maybe we can see if there's any questions. I know that there's at least one question in the Q&A section. It's a little bit of a difficult one, maybe, but Anne has asked, what UK and international companies would you recommend for textile recycling that specializes in shredding for mixed fibers? Jenny, do you think you'd be able to answer to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's an amazing company called Recover in Spain that does textile to textile recycling. There is quite a high MOQ, so we're talking about, I think, 2 and a bit tons of material. They do primarily cotton, from what I remember off the top of my head. So the last project we discussed with them was cotton. There are companies working in mixed recycling for sure. One of them is a relatively small Dutch startup called Reblend. They've developed quite a few cool materials made with mixed fabric. We also work on felt. We work with another Dutch company that turns mixed materials into felt, as I mentioned, the uniforms. There's another really cool European company called Valerius. I don't know if people know that, if you guys have seen it. Valerius are great for textile to textile recycling and turning it straight into products. So we work with them very closely as well. Yeah, those would be, I think, the primary ones that we'd recommend that we work very closely with and sort of know the expectations and what can happen there. So, yeah. Does I hope that answers the question? So
Yeah.
South Africa would be harder for me. In India, not off the top of my head, but I can send you a name if you reach out to us at studio@bean.london. Please do reach out, and we can just dig out the information from where it's.
We'll do a bit of a follow-up after this webinar as well to everyone who attended, so we can share kind of contact details and everything. So if anyone has any more specific questions, they can reach out. I do have another kind of interesting question, that is, what strategies can luxury houses employ to communicate the value of upcycled goods, kind of ensuring that they resonate with consumers who expect also exclusive and quality, which is, I think, is a really interesting topic of kind of understanding from a luxury perspective. Often there is that dilemma of, if it's not new, if it's not exclusive, if it's, how can we help to communicate that?
Yeah, no, it's a very, very good question. I think what worked really well with the example of Formula One and DHL that I started with was that it was the exclusivity.
Yeah.
It was the fact that every piece was really different. So they have become collectibles. We still have it. I mean, it's been a couple of years since we worked on that initial project. We still get people emailing us every now and again asking where they can get one. So that's kind of the exclusivity of, upcycling, because every piece is different. it could be applied to those new materials. So if you turn textiles into a solid material, again, you'll get this marble effect that will be different for every product. So that's what you can. With Tate, what we did together with the team at Tate was kind of the messaging was around take a piece of Tate with you. Not quite like that, but it was, you go to Tate Modern, you see an exhibition, and you go through the shop, and you can take a little bit of Tate with you, because it used to be something that was on the building. It's quite iconic. Everyone knows what the building looks like. So we did that. On the impact side of things, what we see actually really works for larger organizations is LCAs, or carbon footprint, just emissions data. I know that not every consumer would resonate with that, but for sort of more strategic comms, I think that's a good line. I mean, it's really significant reduction. I mentioned 87%. That a lot of it was due to material swaps. So basically, just it's 87% reduction compared to the same product made from virgin materials. It's a huge reduction.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point to make, because you need to almost educate the consumer on that difference.
Yeah,
definitely. And like you said, it's maybe not maybe the most kind of eye-grabbing, information and stat, but I think for consumers who, especially luxury consumers who do really, research and look into what they buy, I think there is that opportunity to educate and say, hey, this is the difference between these products.
absolutely. I've got one more to add. I think if you add craftsmanship to this,
yes,
that really, I mean, that usually resonates with a luxury customer. And there's a lot of really beautiful artisanal work that goes into these products, that is the ones that we work on. It's usually sort of not a machine printed thing. It's usually real people, either in London or in Italy, or we have a beautiful factory in Italy that makes products. It's a UN ethical fashion initiative member. So, you have the social impact there through training migrants to work in leather goods in Italy. And you also add an unusual material with a story to tell, and that makes a really powerful story. And the carbon footprint. So you kind of, I'd say, let's try it on. Let's see what does.
Yeah, just try it on, see what catches. But amazing. Thank you so much for that. I think I'll just looking at the time, and we can start kind of wrapping up. And I think just as a final kind of note, what I wanted to bring up is just focusing on the commercial benefits of investing in sustainability. And obviously this kind of waste management and circularity and everything that you do at Bean London is very much about investing in sustainability. So this is a snapshot from one of our reports that Positive Luxury published about a month ago or 2 months ago now. And it talks about kind of understanding the business case for sustainability, unlocking 12 commercial benefits for sustainability. And also it talks about calculating your return on sustainability investment. So it's a super interesting report that we can send the link to download if that's of interest. But what I wanted to kind of focus and highlight from here is that even by looking at these kind of 12 points from the report, we can straight away see kind of the cost savings. Point number 5, resource and supply chain optimization is definitely linked to everything that kind of Jenny, you explained about what you do, and kind of focusing on that, reducing dependency on virgin materials, and then also the other point on the other side of the iceberg, which is of course the new revenue streams, which is something as well to highlight. So there's definitely link. Everything is linked together. It might not always be super, obvious to everyone, but there's, circular design opens up new revenue streams through innovation and story-driven products. I think that's super important here as well, is the kind of storytelling and educating, and ultimately meeting meeting the rising consumer demand for sustainable alternatives that we do see, even though it sometimes feels a little bit negative, we do see the demand for it, and we do see the opportunities there. So that's kind of the roundup for this session today. Also, just to mention as well that one of the reasons why we're doing this webinar today is that Positive Luxury and Bean London are in partnership, which means that if you are already a client of Positive Luxury, we have kind of an exclusive partnership with Bean London. So if you're interested in their services and want to kind of really get into circularity initiatives and really think about waste as a new revenue stream, please get in touch with your account manager at Positive Luxury, and we will happily introduce you to Genia. She has a lovely little studio in London as well, so it'd be maybe even see the materials in person. But that's an exclusive partnership with us. So please do reach out, and if you're not yet a client, of course, reach out if any of our services are of interest. And what we'll do after this webinar is we'll also send everyone a bit of a kind of one-pager takeaway on what we learned today, and then some contact details so we can stay in touch. And that's it from my side. Genia, do you have anything else that you want to add at the end?
Thank you so much. No, really lovely to be here. Thanks so much. Thank you to Positive Luxury. Lovely to work with you guys. And yeah, do reach out.